Welcome to ModiMakes.
What's good, everybody? My name is Modi, this is ModiMakes, and today I'm going to be working on my biggest canvas to date. So for those of you who watch my videos, you guys will remember that a couple weeks back I did a video on repairing canvases to save money on your art supplies, because canvases can get really expensive. And for those of you guys who haven't seen that video, go check it out and then come back to this one and that'll give you the full story. Because I show you how this canvas initially had a rip in it that I patched, and then I went through coloring the background. So we're going to be skipping the general spray painting of the background part of the video that I normally do at this point and getting straight into the sketching process here in the studio. So to work on my sketch, the first thing I do is I mark out some points with key measurements based on the proportions of the sketch, which I have pulled up on my phone next to me, just to get the key elements in their place so that I have references moving forward for how large and in what area different elements of the painting need to be. And I just do that by taking a measurement on my smartphone of the image by inches and then multiplying it out to the size of the canvas, which was a pretty big multiple in this case because I was going from about 4 inches to 46 inches. Then once I have those initial placeholder points in position, I'm going to continue with the rest of the sketch, just freehanding it based on the visuals and different reference points that I have on my sketch already made there. Then once I've finished up my pencil sketch and I'm happy with how it looks and the proportions are close to what I have in my digital sketch that I created, it's time for me to lay down the initial line work. So with this one, unlike most of my pieces, before I even start putting down line work with my paint pens, I'm going to grab a very similar but slightly different colored greenish blue to the background color and add in some nice set back patterning behind the actual painting here, because it's such a large canvas and it needs to be broken up a little bit more in the background or else it'll feel too flat. And I felt like this would be an interesting thing to do that you wouldn't initially notice until you looked at it for a little while, and then you'd start to notice that there's this just slightly off color to the background patterning work behind the character work. So I'm just gonna go over every pencil sketch line that I made with a black Posca pen, and you don't have to be too careful when doing this part. The lines can be a little bit shaky, at least in this case they can, because you're gonna be painting over most of that, and I'm actually gonna be coming back in for the final line work with a wider pen. So I'm gonna have a lot more coverage to fix any of the wobbly lines that I make here. After finishing up those initial lines, just to have the reference point for where all your colors need to go, it's time to get into the coloring. So we pull out all our colored Posca pens and just start filling in those big fill areas. This one was a little bit different and more difficult than usual because I tend to work with my canvas laid flat on my table. However, this canvas is way too big for my table, so I had to set it up on a rickety little stand that I made, kind of like a ghetto easel, if you will, out of 2 sawhorses and a piece of plywood. So I was having to figure out how to film that properly since I don't normally do it, and doing some weird maneuvers with my body to get out of the way of the camera, which I was very successful in some points and less successful in other points, just so I can get good shots where you can actually tell what's happening for you guys. Plus it was just a lot of hours on my feet because this canvas took a long time, being that it's so big and the fill areas are enormous. wanted to go with a pretty graphic graffiti style piece, obviously in my style itself, for this large canvas because I thought it would work pretty well. And one of the things that I do a lot in my art, but I haven't done in a while, is my hand motifs. I really enjoy making these hand creatures, these hand characters, because I feel like it's a good representation for the artist's hand. But so essentially it's going to be a pretty creepy, sinister looking hand that's cut off below the wrist, kind of in the forearm somewhere, with a giant singular eye and a mouth on the palm of the hand, bleeding out this black inky blood. And you know, since there's a big open mouth, I also had to get a tongue sticking out of there. That's just another thing that I just can't avoid doing when given the opportunity, because I think it adds so much character to the character. Now, when doing these huge fills with Posca pens, it can be a little bit complicated because you're getting some fairly thin lines for what you're actually trying to cover, and it can be very time consuming and physically painful and mentally painful as well. But I like to first start by getting a good outline on the left side of whatever shape I'm trying to fill, and then I do a series of vertical lines to break it up into smaller areas that I can then fill, and it just helps you to feel like you're making actual progress during these long sections of fills that make it a little less monotonous and just a little less brain melting. Now, once I've finished my fill colors, it's time to come in with one of my favorite painting utensils, the Posca chisel tip wide marker. I love this thing because it has a nice thin edge going one direction and a very thick edge going the other direction, so you can get some good, almost calligraphic line work elements that have a nice line variation to them. And I'm gonna run over that entire line work again, which is why I was saying it's not a big deal for my lines to initially be shaky, because I find it a lot easier to get clean lines with this big chisel tip marker, and I'm able to cover up any problem areas that I had from before with it. And the hand, of course, is going to be sporting some nice golden rings and a set of gold brass knuckles, which are motifs that I use a lot in my work because it's a blue meanie, and blue meanies have to have their jewelry and sparkly things. With my classic heart logo on the top right corner, almost like it's sort of a playing card. I think that'll do. Only one more thing left. Details. There's just one more thing to add after all that detail work is finished. I wanted to add a little bit of text to this image because I felt like it was just begging for it. And what would be a better thing to write on there than ink bleed, because of the nice inky blobs coming out of the severed forearm there, and just having this whole idea of it being the representation of the artist's hand. Every artist who works with paint or pens or anything like that, we bleed ink. This is our lives. This is what we do. This is our identity. This is who we are inside and out. So we bleed ink, hence ink bleed. So it seemed appropriate to me. Well, there you have it, my peoples. Ink bleed is complete, and whoa, it was a chore to finish this one. It was very physically and mentally tiring, as I said it was going to be. But you know, now being on the other side of it, I am extremely happy that I went through all of that, and it was so much fun to work on this giant canvas, and I am very, very, very happy with the results. It's one of my favorite, more just straight up street art, graffiti style pieces that I've made, and it still very much holds true to my style and is very recognizable for being one of my pieces. I just feel like it has such instant eye-catching charisma to it. You know, you look at it and you want to know the story about it, you want to look closer at all the little details, but it's so big and so vibrant and has so much going on that you see it from afar and you're just drawn into it immediately, and that is just fantastic. I can't be happy enough with it. But let me know what you guys thought of the piece down in the comments below, and let me know if you have any questions about this video or any other video I've made. I'll be happy to look through them all and respond to them personally, as I always do. And you know, if you like the video, go ahead and give me a like. That would be amazing. And if you like me, you like the channel, and you want to help support me, the number one thing that you can do is to subscribe. I really couldn't thank you enough if you did. It means the world to me. With all that out of the way, and without further ado, let's get in those final shots, shall we?
Thanks for watching.